Hello there. This 100-page secret report on Iran, 2 years in the making, was submitted to the Prime Minister Keir Starmer on the 27th of March 2025. But what has been done about it? Iran is still engaged in attempted assassinations on UK soil, cyber attacks against UK companies, and other attempts to meddle in our affairs, says a yet-to-be-published report, says The Telegraph. And one assumes this can be achieved quite easily, given the porous nature of our borders, especially from those using the English Channel. And here we are right now, 20 years to the day of the 7/7 London bombings. What have we learned? As well as our two-tier justice system that facilitates the interests of those types of bad actors over and above the interests of the ordinary Brit. And a huge example of this is Starmer's government being told way back on the 13th of March this year that Palestine Action had passed the threshold to be classified as a proscribed organisation, but didn't immediately ban that organisation for fear of a violent backlash, which is what we see developing on the streets of London right now. Already pro-Hamas types have, over the course of Friday, been protesting, and also over the weekend have been protesting and been breaking the Palestine Action proscription order that came into force at midnight on Friday. Even the former Pink Floyd songwriter Roger Waters is facing calls to be prosecuted after he published a video on X allegedly praising Palestine Action just hours after that organisation was proscribed. Wonder if the police will shortly be visiting him for his defiance, as well as that 83-year-old retired priest, as well as the over 20 in number other alleged pro-Palestine Action protesters. Instead of 4 coppers arresting one lone white man, asking those among the pro-Palestine mob if they would fight for Palestine against Israel. The old breach of the peace misuse to keep the pro-Hamas loppy appeased. But I have to say I think the real fear for the establishment is that as this does develop and the police come up against virulent pro-Palestine Action activists, people will suddenly realise that the uniparty establishment has been gaslighting us for years about the threat from the so-called far right. Remember the report into the Southport riots found zero evidence of a far right body controlling those events, when in fact the real threat comes from an unholy alliance between the far left and foul anti-Semitic organisations such as the Iranian government's Islamic Republican Guard Corps, which according to this report is active in the UK, but for some reason is not yet proscribed here. What is this government going to do when all that pours out into the public domain? How can they keep up their far-right rhetoric and locking people up for anti-Hamas hurty words once the truth really emerges? Now, the UK Intelligence and Security Committee of Parliament, the ISC, which came out with this Iran report, comprised of 9 members appointed from both Houses of Parliament, has access to classified information on which to base reports such as this one on Iran and a previous one on China. And its report on Iran was submitted to the PM in March. And in accordance with the Justice and Security Act 2013, the Prime Minister must consider whether there is any information in the report which, if published, would be prejudicial to the continued discharge of the functions of the security and intelligence agencies. In line with convention, the committee has requested that the Prime Minister respond within 10 calendar days, i.e. by close on the 6th of April. And as far as I can tell, this report has still not yet been made public. Now, interestingly, the ISC has free rein to look into the areas over which they think the UK is at the greatest risk from. So, question, why no massive inquiry by them into the far right? Unless that committee recognises that the threat is minimal from the far right compared to all the rest. Anyway, Keir Starmer got this report in March, yet still failed to give full backing to Donald Trump's bunker-busting bombing raid on Iran's nuclear weapons manufacturing facilities. Was he just catering for the now worryingly more activist pro-Hamas types infesting our streets? Is he getting more scared of a growing backlash from the anti-Semites? Is he concerned that he might be losing the previously loyal Labour voting sectarian electorate? Now, a quick interjection, please like, subscribe and comment below and become a channel member to get extra content like this for less than the price of a pint in a London pub per month by clicking on the join button or following the link in the descriptions box below on a laptop or desktop computer. Now, this is the bit that really concerns me, and it points to internal Whitehall shenanigans that appears on the face of it to interfere with the work of the ISC. And I don't remember this being made public at the time, although there is a government press release on it. On the 1st of May, the chairman of the ISC, Lord Beamish, said this in a press statement. The committee in the last Parliament became greatly concerned that the vital scrutiny which the ISC provides was being undermined by continued interference by the Cabinet Office in the committee's office. So the 9 politicians, both Lords and MPs, whatever you think of them, were having their intelligence and security work interfered with by the Cabinet Office. Why would the Cabinet Office want to interfere with this committee that was working on a long-term report into the actions of Iran in the UK and that affect the UK? Was it just the usual internal civil serpentry or something more sinister? And given the next part of Lord Beamish's statement, was it part of a concerted effort to pull the powers of the ISC to carry out its oversight functions over the Cabinet Office and intelligence agencies? Because in the lengthy statement, Lord Beamish also talks about the effectively reduced funding for the committee's oversight tasks since 2013. Yet, he says, the UK intelligence community has grown at an extraordinary rate. The committee is overseeing something that is of a fundamentally different order to that which existed in 2013. In simple terms, there is now around £3 billion of public money being spent for which there is no oversight capability. Government intelligence operatives out there with no oversight, except from their direct bosses or government ministers. Just the sort of system the uniparty establishment would like. But it all depends on who you trust here, really, doesn't it? The Cabinet Office, the ISC, our other ministers. The ISC is, after all, made up of politicians and is serviced by the same civil service, just like the Cabinet Office is. On this alleged Cabinet Office interference, civilserviceworld.com said, "The committee, which is made up of 9 MPs and peers, is tasked with the oversight of the government's intelligence and security activities, including MI5, the Secret Intelligence Service, and Government Communications Headquarters." A remarkable statement issued last week by current chair Lord Beamish, the former MP Kevin Jones, says the committee has not seen its funding increase for more than a decade and is in danger of being unable to function. Now, is this just another politician looking at getting more funding to expand their base of operations? Or Is it an indicator of how our entire defence and intelligence operations are being undermined by an extremely biased and sectarian group that has wormed its way over time into our establishment? And in my view, it is the latter scenario that is the most likely. But Keir Starmer's government will do zilch about it. Finally, please like, subscribe and comment below, and a big shout out to our Patreon supporters and members. And thank you for watching.